members in the audience, including U.S. Congressman Lloyd Doggett, University of Texas System Regent Brenda Pejovich, and State Representatives Donna Howard and Elliot Nashdat. And I also welcome the staff members from the office of State Senator Kirk Watson, who has authored a Senate proclamation honoring the law enforcement officers who risked their lives to protect our campus on that day of the shootings, August 1st, 1966. We come together to remember that tragic day in the history of our cherished university. We come together to memorialize the 17 lives lost. And we come together, students, professors, staff members, community members, and friends, to honor you, the survivors, whose lives were forever altered 50 years ago. I've gotten to know many of you over the past year, and I understand that half a century feels as if it were yesterday, that there will never be relief from the pain, and that the scars you live with have also scarred this great university. My hope is today's remembrance can play at least a small role in helping you and helping us heal. In Julius Caesar, Shakespeare wrote, "The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones." My hope today is that with the memorial we dedicate, we remember the good, the innocent, and the heroic. And there are many stories of heroism that first day in August when gunshots rang from the tower. The names of many heroes have been lost to time, students and staff who risked their lives to move shooting victims to safety, doctors and medical professionals who raced to Brackenridge Hospital to tend those with bullet wounds, citizens who donated blood, and Austin police officers, Travis County deputies, state troopers, Texas Rangers, and Secret Service agents who rushed towards danger to protect others. Many of those heroes neither wanted nor sought recognition. But some of those heroes have been preserved by history. They include 7 police officers who ascended the tower to end the rampage. Among them, Officer Jerry Day, Houston McCoy, George Shepard, who have since passed away. And I'm grateful that 4 brave officers are here with us today. Please join me in thanking them for not only being heroes 50 years ago, but for lifetimes of service, as I ask each one of them to stand. Philip Connor. Ramiro Ray Martinez. Harold Moe. And Milton Shawquist. I also want to recognize the family of Officer Billy Speed, who was killed Officer Speed was killed after hearing the shots and running towards the tower to help protect this campus. There were others, 33 shooting victims who battled back from their wounds and carried on with their lives, some of whom are here with us today. And then there were those who did not survive that fateful day. Behind me stands a permanent memorial that honors the 17 victims. The memorial replaces one installed in 1999 when this area was renamed the Tower Garden in honor of the shooting victims. The new memorial and today's remembrance is long, long overdue. 50 years ago, society responded to violent tragedy differently. Healing was thought to occur when we moved on. Survivors did not receive the support that they needed. The campus did not fully grieve before trying to return to normal. In the ensuing decades, there was an instinct to shield the university by not associating it with a singular crime, to not allow tragedy to define the tower, the central symbol of this institution. I have read there's a proverb from ancient India that says, before we can see properly, we must first shed our tears to clear the way. I hope our community can collectively begin to shed those tears by remembering the tragedy of August 1st, 1966, that we can grieve publicly for the lives ended and honor the survivors and the heroes who helped save them. Over the past 2 years, many people have worked to make this remembrance possible. I thank Associate Vice President Erica Sens of UT's Division for Diversity and Community Engagement. And Jim Bryce, who was a student on campus that day. Jim, please give Jim. Jim has been dedicated to making sure we all remember what happened, including as co-chairperson of the committee that assisted in organizing this memorial. Thank you, Jim. I'd like to thank Rodney Molitor, president of Cook Walden Funeral Homes. Cook Walden gifted this beautiful monument. They were one of several funeral homes that took on the grim duty of sending ambulances to transport the dead and the wounded. And the late Mr. Walden was on these grounds on that day. Finally, I want to thank a special survivor who will speak in a moment and then be followed by Congressman and former UT Student Government President, the Honorable Lloyd Doggett. Claire Wilson James lost so much on August 1st, 1966. Claire was shot while walking across the main mall and lost her unborn son. The next bullet took the life of her boyfriend, Thomas Ekman. Claire is the embodiment of the resiliency of the human spirit, and she is an inspiration to me. On this day, she is even more, as she has served with Jim Bryce as co-chairperson of the Texas Memorial Committee. Claire, it is a profound honor to welcome you, and that I ask you to come up here to share a few thoughts.
Thank you to each of you who has made this possible. I'm on a committee with 6 others, and each one of them symbolizes many hundreds, I'm sure, maybe thousands. There's somebody who had a friend shot, and he wasn't actually on the campus. He was waiting off campus for his friend who never showed up. That's Jim. And I dare say he's more traumatized than I was, in spite of my losses, because, you know, everybody's different. And then there's Cliff Drummond, who was the student body president, who was on the committee. There's Cindy Taylor Cryer, who is younger than all of us, but stepped up, having been a regent and on the Daily Texan. Is that right, Cindy? And Alfred McAllister, who it turns out I met just minutes before I was shot, because he was an old friend of my beautiful Tom Ekman. And there's Artley, who's here, who's right over there, who ran out on the campus and picked me up. And it was 90 minutes later, and both of us thought, well, why so long? He for different reasons. But the truth is, that could have gone on for days. It could have gone on for much longer than it did, because nobody knew what was happening, and it was terrifying. And so I want to thank each of you, and I've forgotten Bob Higley and Forrest Priest, who stood there. They say John the Baptist. They say he was the voice crying in the wilderness. I always thought of him as a grain elevator out on the prairie that was the first person to go on the web. And first time I got on the web, as opposed to just email, was to see if there was anything written about all of this. And there was Forrest. The only thing I was taken to, you know, on the web was Forrest's blog. And he has been faithful, got him helped with the officers. But at any rate, some of us have done what we've done by acting, some by thinking and speaking, and some by coming today. Please know how much you are valued. We are just symbols, we're just icons, but all of you have been affected in ways that we'll never know. I just met a nurse who was a student nurse who took care of me that day, and you know, we forget about the ones who kept us alive. It was customary for ancient Hebrews to set up pillars of stones at places where significant events happened. These rocks were called, this is the English, Ebenezers. Have you heard that word? Like Ebenezer Scrooge and so forth. But Ebenezer means stone of help. It means stone help. And I've asked myself many times over the last several years, how can it help to have a memorial? Because I wasn't raised in that sort of tradition, really. But for the many people who have come to the university who see these fallen, where they breathe their last, it will be reassuring and comforting. But truly, it's not the stone that we dedicate, but ourselves. This work can only be done in hearts and minds. So I ask you to join me in making a vow to treasure the ones we walk with right now, each moment. The violence that seized the campus began in the heart of one. Let this memorial remain here on this campus and in our minds as a reminder of the power that we have each moment to become a community of love and reverence for life. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, for those powerful words. I grew up here in Austin, just a few blocks beyond this tower, almost in its shadow. And I think of this tower as, I expect we all do, as the landmark, the trademark of our university. It's a symbol of success and of victory. We love to see that burnt orange tower, and even better when there's a bright number 1 in white lights amidst the orange. And especially as I was growing up here in Austin's earlier pre-skyscraper days, This was the place you always brought visitors to look at the panorama of our 40 acres and of our city, place in which we take such pride. But at noon on a sweltering August day like this, it became a tower of tragedy. From such a great height, one of our fellow students sunk to such a low depth. That day I came out of the business school myself at 21st and Speedway, unaware, as was true of so many other students, of what was happening only a few hundred yards away. And because I was walking south instead of west or north, I went unscathed. This massacre, we need to remember, occurred before terms like gun violence and mass shooting or SWAT team were even a part of our regular vocabulary. This campus attack was unprecedented. I think it was as unexpected for us in the university community and for our police department as if some flying saucer had landed up there on top of the tower. And when officers Ray Martinez, or Trooper Martinez, who we're so pleased is here today, and Houston McCoy and the others were finally able to go up those stairs and end the killing, they didn't know what they faced or how many they faced. For their bravery and that of all of our law enforcement officers, we express our eternal gratitude. I first learned the details of what was happening here myself from my friends Cliff Drummond and Bob Higley. Bob is in a UT shirt around here somewhere, and they were out there along with others selflessly pulling people in. What we saw was from the Tower of Madness, but along the drag and the mall, towering examples of heroism. When the mayhem ended, the sidewalks were clean, the shattered windows down at Sheftall's and along the drag were replaced, and our university just sought to get back to normal. The assault was viewed as an aberration, with little thought that so many others would later be gunned down at schools and at public gatherings. For too long, too little has been done to commemorate those Longhorns whose lives were cut short by this mass shooting. Those who lost a loved one or who still bear the physical or the psychological wounds from that day, they don't need this monument to remind them of what they continue to endure each day. But the rest of us really do, because this monument recognizes each of these very unique individuals. Claire, who had such powerful words and who suffered such unimaginable pain and loss. We salute you and Forrest and Jim and all the others on the committee who were determined and who led to ensure that this memorial became a reality. And with the permanence of Texas pink granite, we'll be saying to generations of Longhorns that there was great courage amidst the violence and the madness. That during, yes, thank you. And we will remind them of what is surely the most tragic 96 minutes that this university community has ever endured. Now such gun violence has become all too commonplace. Over just the past weekend, 3 were killed by a rifle-toting student in Washington State, and we have 1 dead and 4 wounded from right down here on 6th Street. Tragedies that seem to involve hardly enough victims to warrant more than momentary public attention. Repeated moments of silence and offering our thoughts and prayers is simply not enough. Let us resolve to never become callous to the loss we experienced here or those losses, and let us never cease in our efforts to work together to prevent such wanton violence. Thank you.
Perchance he for whom this bell tolls may be so ill that he knows not it tolls for him. Perchance I may think myself so much better than I am, as they who are about me and see my state may have caused it to toll for me, and I know not that. The world is universal, so are all her actions. All that she does belongs to all. When she buries a man, that action concerns me. For all mankind is one author and is one volume. When one man dies, one chapter is not torn out of the book, but translated into a better language, and every chapter must be so translated. Nature employs several translators. Some pieces are translated by age, some by sickness, some by war, some by justice. But nature's hand is in every translation, and that hand shall bind up all our scattered leaves again. For that library where every book shall lie open to one another, the bell doth toll for him that thinks it doth. And though it intermit again, yet from that minute that occasion wrought upon him, he is united to nature. Who casts not up his eye to the sun when it rises? Who takes off his eye from a comet when that breaks out? Who bends not his ear to any bell which upon any occasion rings? And who can remove it from that bell which is passing a piece of himself out of this world? No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, the continent is the less. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never sinned to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee.
Thomas Aquinas Ashton.
Dr. Robert H. Boyer.
Thomas Frederick Ekman.
Mark Jerome Gabor.
Karen Joan Griffith.
David H. Gunby.
Thomas Ray Carr.
Marguerite Gabor Lamport.
Claudia Rutt.
Roy Del Schmidt.
Paul Bolton Sontag.
Officer Billy Paul Speed.
Edna Elizabeth Rose Townsley.
Harry Walchuk.
Kathleen Leisner Whitman.
Margaret Hodges Whitman.
And baby boy Wilson.
We toll the bell once more for all those who suffered as a result of the tragedy on August 1st, 1966.
A rock, a river, a tree, host to species long since departed, mark the mastodon, the dinosaur who left dry tokens of their sojourn here on our planet floor. Any broad alarm of their hastening doom is lost in the gloom of dust and ages. But today, the rock cries out to us, clearly, forcefully, "Come, you may stand upon my back and face your destiny, but seek no haven in my shadow. I will give you no hiding place down here. You created only a little lower than the angels have crouched too long in. The bruising darkness have lain too long, face down in ignorance. The rock cries out today, you may stand on me, but do not hide your face. Across the wall of the world, a river sings a beautiful song. Come rest here by my side. Each of you a bordered country, delicate and strangely made proud, yet thrusting under siege. Today I call you to my riverside. Come clad in peace and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me when I and the tree and the stone were one. The river sings and sings on. There is a true yearning to respond to the singing river and the wise rock. Today, the first and last of every tree speaks to humankind. Come to me, here beside the river. Plant yourself beside me, here beside the river. Each of you, descendant of some passed on traveler, has been paid for. Here, root yourselves beside me. I am the tree planted by the river, which will not be moved. I, the rock, I, the river, I, the tree, I am yours. Your passages have been paid, lifted up, your faces. You have a piercing need for this bright morning dawning for you. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, and if faith with courage need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon the day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take into the palms of your hands, mold it into the shape of your most private need, sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. The horizon leans forward, offering you a space to place new steps of change. Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up and out upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country. No less to Midas than the mendicant, no less to you now than the mastodon then. Here, on the pulse of this day, you have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning.
As we close this remembrance, I want to make sure everyone knows that grief counselors from the university's Employment Assistance Program are available here in the Tower Garden to assist in any way they can. And the survivors and the relatives of the victims and law enforcement officers and their families who served on that Monday 50 years ago are invited to gather in the Eastwood Room of the Texas Union. Our staff are available to assist you with directions to the Union. The Colombian novelist and journalist Gabriel Garcia Marquez, whose archives are housed here at the University of Texas, wrote that the heart's memory eliminates the bad and magnifies the good, and that thanks to this artifice, we manage to endure the burden of the past. We will never eliminate the memory of the horror that consumed this campus on August 1st, 1966, nor should we try. But by focusing on the good, on the stories of the heroes and the lives of the survivors who are here with us this afternoon, we can finally begin to remember and endure our burden of the past. Thank you for joining us, and I invite you to stand as the bagpiper brings our program to a close.
Well, this is the conclusion of the Tower Garden rededication ceremony right by the UT Tower, marking the 50th anniversary of the shooting. We heard from Representative Lloyd Doggett this afternoon. You know, he was the student body president at UT from 1967 to 1968. He called it the most tragic 96 minutes the university has endured. And we heard the reading of the names of the people killed from the president of the student body government back in 1966, as well as the current president. As you heard, they read 17 names. 14 were killed that day 50 years ago. Also on that list was Charles Whitman's mother and wife, as well as a person who died from their injuries many years after the tower shooting. This is a live look at the UT Tower, and you can see on the time right now, it's 11:48. It's going to remain there. They stopped it. That's when this shooting started happening. They've stopped the clock. It's going to remain that way for 24 hours. And if you happen to look at the tower tonight, it's going to be remaining dark to honor the victims of this tragedy. Now, this day also happens to come on the same day the new campus carry rules go into effect. So our Phil Prazen, he has been on the UT campus all morning. And Phil, I'm just curious how these new rules and kind of the feel on campus with these campus carry is reflecting with the anniversary of the UT Tower shooting.
Well, Kate, you know, everybody's known about this campus carry here on University of Texas campus, so it really has been building up to this moment. There's been public forums, there's been public surveys, there's been many protests here on the 40 acres, and now there's a lawsuit. So this isn't really taking anybody by surprise, except for when it actually happened. I mean, I remember covering this in the session when campus carry as an idea came from an idea into a law. And, you know, it went through the entire legislative process without anybody seeming to notice or commenting or, you know, making aware of this would go into effect August 1st. And then after it passes in the late days of May in 2015, all of a sudden the press reads the final product and says, oh my gosh, they Google August 1st. That's the 50th anniversary. And, you know, we pushed many of the Texas leaders, the lieutenant governor, the speaker of the House, the authors of the bill, and they all seem to just say this is a coincidence. You know, it's just a large irony, horrible for some people, significant for some others. And this really just kind of took this campus, you know, the public forums have said that the campus really didn't want this law to come into effect, and a lot of students, a lot of faculty see this as kind of salt in the wound of when this law takes effect. There was a press conference just earlier today, you know, where the UT President Greg Fenves, who spoke earlier today, you know, kind of said, okay, everybody's known about this, here's the final plan, we're ready for this, but there's still a lot of tension here. You know, and this just gets into the bigger picture of the gun debate that we see here in Texas and across the nation. And today, it just seems to be focused here at the University of Texas at Austin. And we will have more on this later at KXAN News at 5 and 6. Back to you, Kate.
All right, good to know. Phil, thank you so much. We'll see you later tonight.